Hi everybody, this is Tom from Rocket Restorations, and today we have this very cool 1967 Dodge Coronet 500 we're going to talk about. The owner is Don, a guy who lives real close to us, and this one he's had in his life for a very long time, and car had a little rough ride through the years trying to get restored, but somebody's honking at me. They like it. Had a little rough ride, but got to Rocket Restorations and we straightened it all out. First, let me give you some background on this model. So this is a 1967 Dodge Coronet 500 convertible. So 67 is kind of a momentous year with Mopars. You know, a lot of people have said that it's kind of the last real Mopar. They weren't really copying anybody else. These are very unique designs. But 66, the Coronet 500 was basically the top of the line car. And there really wasn't any quote unquote muscle car. You know, they had 426 Hemis, but they were all either Coronet 440s or Deluxes or, you know, whatever. In 67, they came out with the Coronet RT. That was basically the first, you know, branded muscle car from Mopar. Obviously there was max wedge cars before that, there was Hemi cars, but it was kind of the first branded muscle car. So the Coronet 500s kind of have a unique personality. You know, in 66 they were the top of the line, and then in 67 they were kind of the luxury model. And it's very much kind of a leftover legacy from the early 60s. See, in the early 60s, when they had the model types, they would add like 500 to a model, or, you know, Galaxy 500 or Coronet 500 or blah blah blah, and or Polara 500, and that was like the top of the line. And then kind of what they were doing at that time was they would just throw more trim at it. You know, the higher the model, the more trim, the more bling on it, and this is kind of a leftover from that. And this is kind of the last year they did that. You know, 68 was a much cleaner design. They didn't put as much trim on it. It was kind of it was, you know, a little bit different. But 67 was kind of the Coronet 500 was the luxury model. So it had, you know, the side trim, had the bucket seats still, but it didn't really have, you know, the big engine or anything like this. So it's kind of a leftover. But there's a lot of styling cues from a Coronet RT on this. So for example, this tail panel here is the same as a Coronet RT, but this one has a 500 on it instead of an RT emblem there. You know, Coronet RT got bucket seats just like this. Console was still optional, but a lot of similar stuff. And when Don was building this car, he kind of wanted to be kind of sort of a Coronet RT clone a little bit. So we did a couple little touches. You know, we put that's a Coronet RT hood scoop on it. He put a bumblebee stripe on it, which looks pretty good. And then put a console in it and the factory tack. But the kind of cool part, and put the 150 speedo in too, which is on the Coronet RT. But the kind of cool thing about this one is it's a bit of a Restomod. So look at the shifter bezel right here. See that? 1, 2, 3, and then overdrive. This has a 4L80E GM transmission from Silversport transmissions. So it has a 4-speed automatic with overdrive. And I'll tell you what, like, I know it's a GM transmission, but this thing really works pretty well. It's pretty impressive. It really reduces revs on the highway. It makes it a lot easier to drive. This one's definitely in the Restomod category. So Don's actually an AC tech. He works on like beer coolers and stuff like that. So he had to have AC on his car. He's an AC guy. And it also has a Sniper EFI system on it. So you can kind of see it sneaking underneath there, the Sniper EFI. I kind of have mixed feelings on the EFI. It definitely makes startup easier. The computer kind of learns on that. But the thing I always get a little bit scared of on these is what's going to happen in 10 years when the technology gets a little old. But I'll tell you what, like, everything's worked really well on this. We've really had pretty good luck with it. The transmission was shifting a little slow too on that 4-speed automatic, but we just got another tune for it, and everything seems to be working a little bit better now. But yeah, this is just a super nice car. Don had it for a while. This was kind of his dream car to build. He just wanted something that was really easy to drive and work really well. It's got a power top. We actually added power windows to it as well. It was kind of a universal kit, kind of made for a 68 and 69 P-body. We kind of made it work with this application, but they work really well. It's got some GM type switches, but, you know, power windows and all that fun stuff, and this thing actually works pretty well. I think this is actually a Ferrari paint. It's like a dark gray with a metallic, but it looks really good. Black boot, and then it's got a white top on it, but I don't know why you'd ever have the top up on this, because it's a convertible. That's the fun way to drive. So a little history on this one. So Don owned this one for a while, and it was really his dream build to get it restored. So he sent it to a shop here locally in Western Washington, and unfortunately it kind of got stuck in body shop hell. They stripped the body down, they got it painted, but it just sat in the shop for 10 years. And I just feel really bad when this happens to our clients. We're actually pretty good about a lot of the cars that come through the shop are saved from other body shops, from stuff like that, from being stuck in restoration shop hell. The problem is when they come back, like parts are usually lost, like the nuts, bolts, and fasteners are missing. We basically had to go through the entire car front to back because we didn't trust anything this other shop did. Everything that we were told was done was not done. And we basically had to redo everything front to back on this car, including the motor. They had the motor all built and ready to get fired up. And we looked at it and we were just scared it was sitting so long. So we ended up having to take the motor apart and putting it back together. But I will say, you know, he had a lot of these parts ordered and most of the chrome work done. It took a while for this thing to go together, but I feel really good how this thing came together. And Don's just super stoked. He's been driving this thing nonstop. It just came back to the shop. We finished this last fall, actually. It just came back in the shop for a bunch of little stuff. There's some stuff we didn't finish last year. We wanted to make sure he got it back in the fall so we could enjoy it a little bit. For example, there's actually one thing to really keep an eye on in your old Mopars. We found this out fairly recently. Apparently, pretty much all of the reproduction speedo cables, the core on the inside is too long. So what happened was, and we didn't realize this at the time, so this uses a custom speedo cable. It's a stock type cable, but it's a custom one to work on this GM transmission. And basically, the core was too long, and it pushed out the needle on the speedometer. It just punched it right out. So we ended up having to send it back to get it rebuilt, which is so frustrating. Apparently all the repro speedo cables like that. If you're putting a speedo cable in your Mopar and it's a new one, you got to make sure you keep an eye out for that so that doesn't happen to you. There's the sniper computer in there, the tack. Love the white interior on this thing. This thing drives great. Got some nice looking wheels. They're retros. They kind of a torque thrust look with the BF Goodwrench TAs. This thing is great. All right, let's go for a little test drive here and I'll show you how it drives. Great part about EFI. Turn the key on. Always let the pump for a second. No need to pump it up, the gas pedal. Boom, fires right up. All right. Let's reverse, neutral, and drive. And away we go. It's funny, people are honking at me. By the way, this is one of my new favorite picture spots. The other one they're doing construction on, and it's basically a gravel road right now. But it's kind of cool. This field's actually, herd of elk hang out here all the time. This is about a mile from my house, and they actually usually go through my yard a couple times a year. It's really cool. When a herd of like 40, 50 elk go through your yard, it's kind of neat. This thing's pretty snappy. You hit the gas and it goes, as it should with fuel injection. That whine from the fuel injection a little bit. It kind of always does that. Third gear. Drop in overdrive. And it is 1500 RPM at 50 miles an hour, which is just perfect. The overdrive makes a big difference. It's really funny though, like today I was doing another video where we were test driving different front suspension and steering systems, and I'll tell you what, the convertible drives much worse. Like, these things are just so much looser compared to a hardtop. You can just feel stuff moving around. It's crazy. This S-turn here is kind of entertaining. It's pretty tight. Brake. Comes right out of the corner, nice. Another S-curve. Brakes, left, back home we go. All right, well there you go. Pretty much Restomod perfection. I'm kind of a stock guy. I've never been a huge fan of some of this Restomod stuff, but this GM 4-speed works pretty well, and it doesn't really, you don't have to cut the torsion bar cross member. You just have to clearance the pan on one side for the solenoid on the side. They aren't cheap. I mean, it's a lot of money for one of these things. I think it's like $4,000, $5,000. But I'll tell you what, having that overdrive going down the road is really, really nice. The power windows, the fuel injection, this thing's a really nice car. Don's really enjoys this thing and loves driving it. So, all right, well, this is Tom from Rocket Restorations. I appreciate everybody from watching, and we'll talk to you soon.